What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? Joey Womack here, founder, CEO of Goodie Nation, coming to you with another episode of Prequel, Origin Stories and Inflection Points. You're in for a treat as we have some amazing founders that are going to say some amazing things. Super excited. And here's the reason why. At Goodie Nation, we're focused on closing what we call the relationship gap. Now, this is the lack of connection between entrepreneurs and those that are influential in business, particularly in tech. And here's why that is important. When you're not connected to influential people in business, typically it means you have, as an entrepreneur, you have a harder time getting capital. It means you have a harder time getting customers. It means you have a harder time getting talented people to hire, and also the advice you need to navigate the nuances of being a founder and a CEO. I don't have to tell you that probably means that it increases the likelihood of that entrepreneur, that startup not being successful. And we found through our years of doing work that diverse founders have a harder time getting connected to influential people in business and tech than their counterparts. Right. And we don't want that. And so at Goodie Nation, we're focused on closing this relationship gap. And we believe that a part of closing the gap is understanding the journeys of these founders. So today you'll hear from a number of founders talking about how they got to where they are today, what motivated them, what is their why, and things of that nature. I think you'll see a little bit of yourself in their journey, right? Which I believe, and I think the rest of the Goodie Nation team would agree with me, it means you'll be a little bit closer to them, right? It may inspire you. It may inspire you to do what you've been set out to do in this world, but it also may inspire you to reach out and help them. So enough from me. Let's get to these awesome founders and our team members here at Goodie Nation. So I'm going to pass around the microphone a little bit. They're going to share a little bit about them, their company, and also where they're based out of. And I want to kick it to my co-host, Casey, for a quick intro.
Thank you so much, Joey. Hey, everybody. I'm Casey, and I'm a 2023 Goodie Nation Storytelling Fellow. I'm also the founder of Could Be Pretty Cool, an audio production company that makes podcasts about arts and culture.
Nice. Let's get to the founders. Let's go with Mark.
Great afternoon, everybody. Mark Alexander, founder and CEO of Like Tuition, the only platform that allows students to raise money for tuition and sent directly to the school without the burden of debt. We're based here in beautiful Southeast Michigan, and happy to be on today.
Awesome. Yanel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yanel. I'm one of the co-founders of Cultivate. We help teams prevent burnout within their workspace by looking at work demands and making that more sustainable, and also helping folks make the most of their work recovery. And we're based in Oakland, California.
Nice. Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lisa S. Jones. I'm the founder and chief iMail officer of iMail Inc. iMail is a patent pending marketing technology that enables video to automatically play up to 60 seconds to increase engagement and deliver storytelling moments. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice. Wale.
Hi, everybody. I'm Swale. I'm founder of eYunkta. We are a privacy-first identity platform. We focus on finding value in user identity and their online interactions with emphasis on control, privacy, and transparency.
Nice. And Carlonda.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. I am Carlonda McKinney, founder and CEO of Botify, which is a predictive analytics platform for online clothing retailers. We help people shop more intelligently so that the purchases they make stay purchased, and we keep returns out of landfills.
Nice. Deshauna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deshauna Spencer. I'm the founder and CEO of Quilly TV. We are a digital platform that celebrates Black stories, amplifies Black storytellers through independent films, documentaries, web shows, children's programming from across the globe.
Nice. Next up, we have Debbie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie Camuncho, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of SaaSback. And we're a marketplace, and we help brands connect with software platforms who solve problems they have and help them grow. And on the other hand, we help SaaS companies connect with brands who they built their software to solve their problems.
Nice. And Tevin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tevin Harrell, CEO of TaxWiz and Tight Software. And we created an all-in-one platform for tax professionals and CPAs that takes the time down from 4 hours to as little as 20 minutes. And we're located in Birmingham, Alabama.
Awesome sauce. So let's get to these origin stories. They're going to take a few minutes to tell you how they got there. We'll start with Mark. Mark, I mean, how'd you get here, good sir? What's that origin story? What's that journey?
Beautiful. So again, thank you for this opportunity. The origin, of course, starts with two strong and amazing women for me. My mother and grandmother, who both were cancer survivors, but succumbed to their injuries over these past few years. They laid into me a very powerful foundation that no matter how low you may be in life, you continue to help. So my journey after graduating from Pontiac Central, I went to one of the most expensive engineering schools in the state, Carey University, based in Flint, Michigan. And of course, the caveat for that one was someone told me you can make money while you're going to school. So of course, being a first generation student going to college, not having the finances, all I was thinking about was making money while I was in school. But so many of us across the country realize school and tuition is through the roof. But during that time, I started a nonprofit called Youth of Tomorrow because, of course, coming from a rough environment, I realized everyone at least needs the opportunity to be successful in life. So during this time, we provide inner city youth with innovative educational programs, which is amazing. But even with all the good I was doing, I still, on my own personal journey, was struggling to financially pay for school. I had maxed out on student loans. 2008, I had reached a roadblock where I was no longer able to pay for school. I was still doing nonprofit programs. I was making a lot of headlines just with the great things we were doing, but I was unable to finish school. And that year, man, that was one of the most difficult years I had to experience. I remember this reporter from the Flint Journal called, and she was asking me, Mark, how are things going? I know you're doing amazing things with the youth. And I remember telling her in March of 2009, I was like, I'm not in school right now. We're still doing programs, but I just can't afford it. And it was a 10-second pause in there. She's like, wow. And we just continued on about the programs. And then what happened 2 weeks later was our story made the front page of the Flint Journal. And it said, Kettering Senior is unable to pay for his last year of school. And that began to plant what I love to see as the mustard seed for this journey that we're on. In March of 2009, someone gifted me with an anonymous $16,000 check to pay for my last year of school with the one request that I pay this gift forward. And that began this journey of light tuition way back when that led us to where we are now. We originally started off focusing just on college students because that was where my journey started. It was hard going to school, watching people graduate that I came into school with, graduating after me, and then almost missing that final chance to walk across that stage. And here I was doing everything in my mind positive, involved in community organizations, supporting people, but that opportunity wasn't available to me. And I realized at that moment that we have to continue to pay this forward, which is what we're doing every single day with Light Tuition. We now help students all across the country raise the money they need to pay for the tuition. And that is me keeping that promise to that anonymous donor that I still do not know of to this day that changed my life forever. So if I can create these moments for amazing students around the world, imagine the ripple effect that can take place. We continue to grow. And of course, with every single journey, I started to meet more amazing people. Our amazing CTO, who has helped scale us astronomically, our CFO, and just the great team we have built up. But what it showed me on this journey, and which is one reason why I'm definitely thankful of Goodie Nation, W. Du Bois says a quote that stands out so much to me. A system can't fail a people it wasn't set up for to begin with. I realized back then, even now, we have a broken educational system. We have a broken system for so many underserved, economically disadvantaged people that doesn't work in their favor. So we started to rebuild the system that can take care of them. We started to build the ecosystem that allow them to grow and thrive. And that's where Light Tuition has now grown. We empower organizations as well with our white label software. And we continue to meet amazing people that show us that social entrepreneurs can do just as much impact as any other entrepreneur out there. So it's been an absolutely amazing journey for us. It's been exciting. And we're just thankful to God for the doors he has opened, the people he's connected with, and the amazing things that are still to come. And again, thank you, Goodie Nation, for these closing the gap for us as we continue to do great things around the world. Again, if you guys want to learn more about us and join the Pay For It movement for education, visit us at www.lighttuition.com.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. I mean, the legacy of your family, you know, you take in those words and never letting it go, that anonymous donor and stuff like that, and you know, upholding the promise to them, you know, even though you don't know who that person is, right? Upholding that promise, it speaks a lot to your character, your integrity, your leadership ability, and stuff like that. And thank you for making the world a better place and providing access to a lot of people.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise.
There it is. There it is. Oh, cool. Okay, cool. So next up we have Yanel. Yanel, what's the story? How'd you get here?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and so inspiring to be here with you all. So yeah, I'm Yanel. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Grew up in a big Cuban family down there. Went to undergrad at Northwestern, and that was a really tough transition from like big public schools to such a intense private school. And so spent my first 7 years of my career in education. I did Teach for America. I worked in education politics, and then I started an education nonprofit organization. And in each of those roles, I just experienced such intense burnout. I remember in my first 3 months of teaching, just many moments where I was like, I taught second grade, so like laying down in the middle of my classroom when my kids were at lunch and just trying to like, you know, keep everything going. I worked in education politics, and every time there was an election, it was just like such a sprint to the finish. And then I'd have to take weeks and months off, basically to try to just come back to my baseline. And then I started a nonprofit, and nothing burns you out more than being a founder, as I'm sure many folks on this call know. So yeah, after about 3 years, passed off the organization and decided that I needed a break. I went to business school. I went to do my MBA at Berkeley. And mostly just went because I wanted to take a step back. I wanted to reset. I wanted to take, you know, a couple years to really think about my career and what I wanted to contribute and what problem I wanted to work on. It was really interesting timing because Christina Maslach, who's a Berkeley professor, in the same year that I started business school, she published a book basically saying that, hey, for the first 50 years of burnout research, we have been looking at this from sort of like a mental health angle, right? And like from the field of psychology. But what we're seeing is that the root causes of burnout are actually all management science problems. And we really need to start digging in on the sort of managerial root causes of burnout. And I became just so obsessed with the problem. I had seen it in myself across, you know, all the different roles I've had. I had seen it in my top performers. At this point, I've been a manager, you know, of teams for like 10 years. And I've seen it with all of my best folks, that they all just hustle at an unsustainable clip and then eventually crash and burn. And as I started to look into the research and dive deeper and deeper, I just started noticing that there were actually really clear best practices, and that we actually knew a lot about how to structure teams in a way that was that enabled sustainable peak performance, right? Similar to the way that athletes take like work recovery really seriously. I started thinking about, okay, how do we structure work demands in a way that enables teams to sort of achieve a lot at work and doesn't burn them out right away. And there are 6 drivers of burnout, right? Workload, control, fairness, values, alignment, community, right? And these are all levers that managers can impact. And then there's also work recovery. And so thinking about how you as an individual take your time off really seriously. We developed this framework around high quality time off, which has these 5 attributes that help people sort of make the most of, let's say, an afternoon off or a Saturday off or their upcoming kind of vacation and PTO. And over the last couple years, we've worked with very cool companies. We've got in to partner with Box and TaskRabbit and Reich and Fiveable and hundreds of employees. And we've learned a lot, and we've automated all of our learnings into what is currently a Slack app, an app for Slack that looks at behavior, it looks at like how work is happening, and if it notices unsustainable practices, then it'll automatically intervene and support managers to make change based on the research. And then it also helps folks make the most of their work recovery. If it notices that there's not enough consistency in work recovery habits, then it'll also automatically intervene to recommend high quality time off experiences. And yeah, we're really excited about the initial results. 46% reduction in self-reported burnout symptoms, and really excited to sort of serve as a bridge essentially between sort of like the management science part of it and the folks that are in the field every day really working hard. So yeah, if you want to keep in touch with us, would love to chat. You can check us out at cultivate.io, cultiveit.io, or email us at hello@cultivate.io. Thanks so much.
It's so fascinating that we as a society are at a point where we need systems to manage our burnout and to actually take time off and to actually know how to relax. And yes, it's so necessary right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need to be using it. And I'm like the probably the perfect at least profile. I also, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, especially for founders, right? I mean, it's difficult for founders, also obviously difficult for employees and stuff like that. But I really love your expertise in this subject and hearing you break down at least, and I know there's a lot more to it. Break down the science behind it and stuff like that. It's just amazing. And also I want to point out the intersection between like on the education piece between you and Mark from earlier. So one side of it, I'm sure that there's probably burnout from students, stressing over, staying in school, and then the teacher side as well. That's a whole, we could probably do a whole podcast episode on the classroom, on the education space and the problems on the both sides of the fence. Good stuff.
Thank you.
I think next time I want to kick it over to Carlonda to hear more about your origin story and how you got here and stuff like that.
Sure. Thank you, Joey. My origin story as a founder, I don't think it follows like a traditional founder story. I never wanted to be a tech startup founder. That was never something I set out to be. Although I never wanted to have a job. So when I was growing up, my parents didn't hold traditional jobs. My father worked for himself. My grandparents worked for themselves. I never saw people going to work in a traditional sense. And then in undergrad, I went to the University of Missouri for my business degree, and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to be, which was a doctor or a lawyer. So business school, right? And I was terrible at math. So engineering was out. So I went to business school. And then I graduated and got my first like big girl job and cried every day. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. This is terrible. It's horrible. Give me another option. And so I went back to grad school, and I went to University of Missouri in Kansas City, which is where I'm based now, Overland Park, Kansas. And they had an entrepreneurial emphasis for MBA. And at the time that was really kind of new. This was back in 2010. It wasn't common for universities to have like entrepreneurial programs, much less a degree in entrepreneurship. And so that started my kind of official journey down the path that would ultimately lead to Bodify. So out of grad school, I had a few fits and starts. I started a few different companies. One of them I spun up with a co-founder during our MBA coursework. And they had varying degrees of success, right? But nothing that was life-changing or really sustainable. And so I ended up getting a few different jobs, but the one I was with the longest right before I left to start Bodify was a global health IT company. We built software systems, operating systems for hospitals. Again, I'm not a developer, and I have no idea how I landed on the team that I ended up being on, which was a physician documentation tool. In that role, I learned so much about data collection and pattern matching and predictive analytics. And one of the things that I helped to spin up while I was at this company as a technical project manager and business analyst, requirements writer, we had this software, this algorithm that will crawl a patient chart and look for specific keywords and then suggest to the physician different diagnoses. Okay, this comes back into play later. And it was so cool. Like, it helped with fatigue, it helped physicians be more efficient. And, you know, it got me promoted. So fast forward to like 2019, 2020. I was shopping online because I do that a lot. I still do it. And I had an event that weekend. And I remember this so clearly. This was like a Sunday. And I needed a dress for the following Saturday. And I was on this website that will remain unnamed, but it is 3 letters and ends with app. And I found the perfect dress to wear to this event. And I used their Fit Finder tool at the time, which was another company that I really won't name at this time. But I used their Fit Finder tool, and it suggested that I purchase a particular size in this dress. I was suspicious, to say the least. So I ordered the size it recommended and the next size up because, you know, whatever, I'll just send the one that doesn't fit back. Well, much to my dismay, the dresses arrived like Saturday morning. Perfect timing. Neither dress fit. I mean, I got them on, right? I could get them on my body so they like fit on me, but the seams weren't hitting right. They just didn't fit. And so I was pissed and sad and all the things. And I ended up like just going to the store and buying something and recovering. But that started this thought pattern of like, what went wrong there? This software asked me all these questions. They should have gotten that right. What happened? And my initial thought was that they weren't asking the right questions, right? Bad data in, bad data out, poof, you know, I'll solve it. And so that was my mission, was to figure out what was wrong with their algorithm so that they would hire me and I could leave my job at the time and go work for them and everything would be great. But in that process, I figured out that their algorithm wasn't broken and they weren't asking the wrong questions. That store was just a store that I shouldn't have been shopping at because they don't make clothes that fit me. It didn't matter what size was recommended. That place doesn't make clothes that fit me. So then I started looking for, well, who can tell me? Who can tell me who makes clothes that fit me? How can I find that out? And there was nothing. And pulling from my MBA, I'm like, well, if I have a problem and no one's solving it, I'm going to solve it myself. And I bet you more people have this problem. And that is what started me down the path to Bodify. At the time, I had no idea that my problem in my world was as giant as it is. And so my motivation morphed. It went from very self-serving to very much like, oh, this is big. And this is like a problem, not just for people, but for our planet. Because a lot of people assume that when you return things, they end up finding a new home. That's actually not true. Retailers don't like to spend the money or the time or the energy to parse through returns and put them back out on the floor. So they just throw them away or they'll burn them because, you know, fire fumes are great for climate, right? Nothing good comes from clothing returns. And so if you can help people find what fits up front, they won't return things because the number one reason for returns is fit and size. And so what I ended up doing was trying to figure out, okay, what is the best way to approach this? And then I pulled from that health IT experience where, you know, we built the algorithm to crawl the charts. And I'm like, what if we could do that for clothes? What if we could just crawl clothing data points and match them to an individual and just, you know, estimate or predict what will fit? And that's essentially what we do. With Bodify, we assign every item on the page a fit confidence score. So you as the shopper know on a scale of 1 to 100, this is a 12, should probably not hit add to cart. Or this is a 92, it's really likely going to fit you, like really fit you. And we've gotten a really, really great response so far. Like I said, this ended up being not just a me problem, but a we problem. And we're pre-seed right now. We have a lot of really cool projects coming up. We just had a really awesome call with Accenture a couple weeks ago, who now wants to start offering us as one of their toolkit options for their clients who want to optimize fit and return reduction. So it's kind of snowballed, but that's my origin story, and here we are.
I love it. So how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. So you can get in contact with me on Twitter. My personal handle is at Carlonda, like Carl and Yolanda. Those are my parents. So at Carlonda _. And then Botify is at _Botify_. I'm also on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook, but don't find me there. LinkedIn, LinkedIn and Twitter are the safe zone. So I would love to hear from you. Also, www.botify.io. If you are a retailer that needs to reduce your returns, or you want to suggest a retailer, you can do all of those things on our website.
So there's some little bit of apprehension on from a privacy perspective on Facebook. So good stuff. Actually, speaking of privacy, I actually want to kick it over to Swale. Swale, I mean, what's your origin story? So how'd you get here?
Man, it's interesting, and it's always different telling my story. So I'm a kid from a small fishing village in Belize called Hopkins, and it's filled with beautiful Garifuna people, which I am. And if you know anything about Garifuna people, we're known for our culture, our music, our dance, and our food, and just being kind of attached to that. And here I was, we are also teachers, oddly enough. But here I was, a kid who was fascinated by innovation, inventiveness, and ingenuity was a part of who I was. And I was continuously on a quest to try to innovate, break things along those lines. But unfortunately, because of the limitations that exist within the place I'm from, it was a little bit tougher journey. But a huge part of my story is about the people who were there that created opportunities for me. And I had an opportunity to get a scholarship, which was originally denied because it was based on what you're studying. And I chose to study technology. And they denied it because it wasn't culture. It wasn't anything around agriculture or fisheries or something along those lines. But it later got approved because of the help of the Honorable Sylvia Flores, who recently passed away. But she was a huge impact on my life because of, and she has significant impact on my trajectory because of that one single approval that she gave me. It brought me to the States, where I went to college at the University of South Florida, and I studied computer engineering and computer science. After that, I was just in technology, and it wasn't fulfilling to me. There was a moment in my life where I wanted to walk away from technology and just start all over. But I got an opportunity at two major tech conglomerates. And when I assumed those positions, one, they gave me an opportunity to be myself and leverage my ability to be social, to communicate, to share, and to be innovative. And that I traveled the world because of that. And then I noticed that there was a pattern with my involvement in technology. And for some reason, it was more focused on the B2B side as opposed to the consumer side. And then for a while, I did some reflection, and I understood that the reason why is because B2B gave me an opportunity to build applications that can change the world and impact how people interact with the world and create an efficient world. And I saw that more so when we built technology for first responders and individuals who leverage it to kind of save lives. So that was also important to me. But being in that B2B space, one of the things that was high priority and I got an intimate knowledge of was security and privacy as it relates to access to different applications. And I knew that, and I kept an eye on it. And then as my career grew, I realized that I was being leveraged because of my identity and I guess what I represented. And I look back at the companies that I was associated with, and I realized that a lot of what they were working on had to do with more about product and profit as opposed to people. And being an innovator or being fascinated by innovation, I've always kind of leaned towards a human-centered design that is focused on human beings, how to make this world better and leveraging technology to make life as human beings better. So I realized that my purpose had to be greater than myself. And it was a selfless act. So I decided to kind of look down this idea of identity and what it means for the foreseeable future. And I realized that today, in my humble opinion, that identity is the most valuable thing on the internet. And it will be that way, especially as with the introduction of Web3, and as we're going along this path. I think the metaverse itself is a race to monopolize user identity. And it's my job. I've assumed some responsibility to help counter that. If you look on social media, you realize how user identity has been used has been monopolized, and they're creating an opportunity for monetization in every aspect. So using psychographics to monitor our interactions, to be able to, again, grossly profit. And I think there's an opportunity, because most of social media is built on user-generated content. And if we are the users, it's important that we are able to get any sort of profit or any sort of advantage of leveraging the use of our identity. So that's been the focus. And that's kind of what started up the idea of Iyungta, is one, having general public and users like you and myself understand that our identities are in fact valuable. And we, especially as Black and brown people, we have significant impact on social media and the content that is generated. So it's important that we understand the value that exists within us and our identity. So that is how Iyungta came about. And now the focus is continuously find ways to identify identity, and then whatever value comes from that, we pass that directly to the users themselves. And it's shown itself in the sense of our social login, which gives users full control over the access and transparency as it relates to their data. You know who accesses your data, when it's being accessed, and what part of your data is being accessed. And we're leveraging that information to solve authentication hurdles, as well as the as it relates to e-commerce and carts, because a lot of people are hesitant. They don't trust the internet anymore. So we're finding creative ways to kind of leverage your identity to your advantage. And that's basically how Iyungta was founded. If you want to reach us, Iyungta, we're on most or nearly all social media platforms under Iyungta, IUNCTA. Our website is iyungta.io. Feel free to reach out. Personally, I am Swale on Instagram, but you'll see a lot of photos of me and my kids. And every now and then I talk about identity, but yeah, that's myself and the Iyungta platform.
There it is. I love it. I love it. I love it. Cool, cool. Okay, rolling right along. I want to kick it actually over to Debbie now. Debbie, what's your origin story?
Thanks, Joey, for having me today. It's interesting that, Mark, you started up by setting your story up with a strong woman in your life. My story starts very much the same. My mom moved to the States when I was 4 years old to New York City with $1. And by the time my sister and I came to the US to join her at 12, she was a computer engineer. And that set up my love and my passion for the realization of human potential, just watching that story live out. So my whole life has been a quest for, how can I be the best version of myself, and how can I help others around me do the same? So when I was 17 years old and it was time for me to get a job, I got a job as a street canvasser. I don't know if you guys know, it's the people that stand on the corner and say, hey, do you have a minute for the environment? And it was hard. It was hot. People kept avoiding eye contact. It was very difficult, and I loved it for all those reasons. And that kind of kicked off my career in sales. And I ended up falling in love with sales for those same reasons. I felt like it really was challenging. It was helping people solve problems. It really pushed out the best version of me. Fast forward now, 15 years later, 4 years ago, I found an industry that I completely fell in love with, which is e-commerce, a similar industry where Carlanda is built in. And I call e-commerce being the industry where brands were using platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce and Adobe Commerce and Salesforce Commerce to sell online exist, and the software platforms that have been built to help them sell online and thrive. And I love this industry, wanted to stay in it, was doing partnerships last year for a startup there. And I woke up in April and I realized there was no way we were all going to realize our potential. The space was incredibly crowded. In our ecosystem alone, there are 9,000 applications. There's 40,000 SaaS applications out there. So A brand owner who really wants to do well and wants to know what the best technology is for them to have on their site in order to do so has to filter through 7,000 applications. All of them are emailing them saying, here's how we can help your business, here's how we can help. And on the other hand, there were all these great people like Carlanda who built these wonderful software platforms to solve a problem that they really saw in the industry. And I realized that there was a gap between these two and connecting them. And that is how SaaSback came to be. We built out SaaSback as a marketplace where we can help these two connect. We have SaaS platforms. They identify the exact problems they built to solve and for whom they've built their platform to solve these problems. And then we have brands on the other end who are coming in and they have problems that they want to solve or they want to grow their business in different ways. And we help them connect in a way that's really simple and really easy. If you want to connect with us, check us out at saasback.com. The only social media platform I have is LinkedIn, so please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or add me on LinkedIn.
I love it. I love it. I love the embracing your human potential. I love it. I love it. Okay, so I want to kick it over quickly to Tevin.
Yeah, for sure. Hello, everyone. So, kind of how my founder story starts is I come from a very powerful mom. She was a single mother. We grew up in like a 2-bedroom, 8 people, in a 2-bedroom kind of house kind of thing. But I was always very ambitious and very different kind of growing up. And I always was learning stuff, starting stuff, getting into things, all the way through high school, starting different programs. I was that kid that had to be a part of literally everything. Whether it was, I was on the basketball team while doing band, while being on the math team, while science Olympiad, while being, the kid that couldn't sit down. And I never really knew why or where that came from. All the way through to college, joined Alpha Phi Alpha. I majored in engineering, and when I was in the fraternity, I started to really like the business side. So I was the social chair, executive vice president, and all of these different things. And I like the idea of like negotiating and going to find the venues and how do we market and all of those kind of things. But like I said, I still never knew where it came from. So right after I graduated college, 2 things happened to me. Most of my family had never really lived outside of Alabama. So the farthest family member we had was in Georgia, but everybody really stayed in Alabama. So I was always the person that said, I'm going to go out and, I'm going to move away. So I got a job in Texas, and right during that time too of graduating, I met my biological father. So it was pretty interesting because when I met my biological father, even though we never knew each other, I kind of talked like him, looked like him, had similar mannerisms, and it was pretty weird. Like I ended up finding out a lot about myself during that time because he was a very successful entrepreneur. He had multi-million-dollar tax offices and all over the Southeast. So also during that time, my now wife, got pregnant while still going to Auburn. So I made a decision like, hey, I'll try and come and run one of these tax offices, even though I don't know anything about taxes. And that'll allow me to be able to be close to my fiance while, we go through the pregnancy and all those different things. So fast forward, he lets me take over and manage one of the offices, and I'm running it, and I'm like, there's no way that you got $1 million business like this. I felt like it was unorganized. There's people waiting in the lobby for hours at a time. And, he was kind of saying like, no, this is the way it's always been. So me being an engineer and being creative, me and my friends were like, we're going to build the biggest virtual tax company in the United States. That was our goal. So 2 years after working in his offices, I went and started TaxWiz. And we learned really quickly some of the things that he was talking about. Like with the current software and all those different things, that it was pretty tough to actually change and be virtual and have software solutions, because most of the software was built in like the 1990s. So us being naive, we started going to a couple of different tax software programs, telling them like, hey, if you guys can just create this, this, and this, then it'll make everybody's lives easier, and we'll be able to go faster, because we always had more clients than we had the ability to do because of the software limitations. So we even got to sit with like the head of engineering at some of these different firms, and it was like, well, with our software was built on DOS, and we have to have more engineers that can code in that language than trying to do a whole bunch of new implementations. So we started the journey of creating our own. It took us 2 years to go through the rigorous IRS approval process. But after those 2 years, we just in 2022 became 1 in 15 IRS approved software developers in the U.S. So we're the only minority owned, the only owners under 50 years old. And now, we're changing the way that tax returns are filed, and we're ready to, and that's type software, we're ready to hit the road.
I love it, man. This awesome story. There's a lot we can go into. How can people get in contact with you?
Y'all can follow us. We have a very fun Instagram. We make taxes cool at taxwiz.com. Instagram/taxwiz, Facebook, and then LinkedIn. If you want to link in with me, it's under Tevin Harrell.
There it is. Okay, so quickly, as we have a few more minutes left, I want to kick it over to Lisa. Lisa, what's your quick origin story?
My origin story started at the age of 5. I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur, a little entrepreneur in the making. But my father in Troy, Alabama, and my mom had a grand opening, and there's a photo of me there at the age of 5. And they're having the ribbon cutting. And I remember all of these people lined up along the way. And I was like, why are all these people in the heat every day to come into my father's ice cream shop? And I remember my mother working at the register, and every time the register at that time would say ka-ching, she would like smile and light up. And I think that was my first recollection of like, wow, I'm hooked on whatever this is, with people coming in business. And then my second progression was when I started at McDonald's hamburgers from the age of 16 to 21. And that was really, I consider that my fundamental of starting my career, because I learned so much from McDonald's, right? I learned how to learn about business systems, how to multitask, my interpersonal skills, customer service, and then even how to upsell. You want fries with that shake. But all of that started at the age of 16 going forward. Then I decided to follow in my sister's footsteps and go to the one and only Alabama A&M University, and majored in logistics and procurement. I got an offer from NASA, started there, next for NASA for a few years. I thought I was going to be there a long term, for a lifer for the most part, but I decided to make a change and leave and come to Atlanta, Georgia. There I became, worked at Singular Wireless and AT&T as a corporate executive, and everything was going great. But then, sometimes in life things happen that help you to redefine what you want to do with your journey forward. And in my case, I got a phone call one morning while on the way to work that my mother had passed away. My sister called me to tell me that our mother had passed away at home alone at the age of 61. And I remember the impact that moment in time had on me. So when I went to my mother's services in Alabama, it was a graveside service. And in my mind, I was going to get up and speak, you all, but it didn't float out that way. I wasn't on the agenda. The services to me seemed to have only lasted for 7 minutes. That was my recollection of how it happened. And people were going back to their cars. And I just remember thinking, is this what life comes down to, is 7 minutes of time? Somebody gives their life for 3 daughters, term successful. In 7 minutes, everything is just gone on. I think people should be celebrated. And they should, be celebrated. So I made a prayer to my mother that day at her graveside. And I said, I'm going to go back to Atlanta. I'm going to find a way to start a company that's going to be inspiring and global, but it's going to create a legacy. It's going to stand for something important, and it's going to make up for these 7 minutes. So the 7 minutes was the catalyst of me thinking about what kind of company I want to start. So I started thinking about how that one communication from my sister redefined my whole roadmap forward. And so with that, I thought about I'll start a communications business. And I said, well, how do we communicate? Verbally, non-verbally, and writing. What else do we do? I said, well, we email people. Well, who do we email? Wow. So, internal, external, one click is anywhere in the world. I won't even have to have inventory. I'm like, this is cool. So what did I do next? I signed up for 150 different brand emails just to see what do major brands send out, what do nonprofits send out. And when you take into account that the average email is 438 words, I don't know about you, but I really don't want to read 438 words worth of text or hyperlinks to click to go to a website to have to click again. And I didn't feel inspired, right? I didn't feel special. And with that, I said, what if email had a personality? What if email could be brought to life with video? So that as soon as it opens, it's engaging and compelling. And it doesn't drive you to a call to action, because I disagree with that. It inspires you to want to learn more, to engage, and to go for that next step. And so with that, iMail was born. And as of 2022 now, we are a finalist for Diverse Supplier of the Year at Microsoft. And that's my origin story.
Wow, powerful way to turn a surely painful moment into purpose and stuff like that. Kudos to you. Okay, so how can people get in contact?
Yes, by all means, feel free to visit the website. It's iMail Inc. and it's spelled EYEMAILINC.com. And by all means, I would love to stay connected on LinkedIn. Be sure to put Lisa S with the S in there, Jones. And if you want to email, it could be, of course, hello@imailinc.com. Thank you.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, we have Deshauna. What's your story?
Hey everybody, again, Deshauna Spencer, founder and CEO of Quilly TV. My story actually starts like a lot of people in my youth. I'm actually from Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised, grew up with working class family. And as a child, we didn't have a lot of money, and I used storytelling as a way to understand life. Like, we couldn't travel many places. My parents couldn't afford to like go on vacations and things like that. But a way for me to see the world, a way for me to understand the world around me and escape was through storytelling. And so I understood at a very young age, the importance of how important storytelling is. And so as a child, I was an avid reader. My parents would take us to the library. I would check out like 10 books and read them all, devour them all in like a month. And I used to watch Meet the Press before church, and I was an avid reader of Ebony and Jet. I actually learned about Emmett Till's death through Jet magazine one day on my way to church. And I used to even use my lunch money, save it up, and would get subscriptions to various magazines. And then I thought I would be a novelist because I was such an active reader. I love reading. I actually love reading to other people. So like when I was like fifth and sixth grade, I would actually go to the kindergartners and first graders and read to them. And I really enjoyed that a lot. I used to write stories, and I was a storyteller. I used to write short stories as a child. And I also really love the news. I watched Meet the Press. I used to read the daily paper after my dad read it. It was a ritual for us when I was growing up. In high school, I worked at Blockbuster. My love for storytelling was through my first real job in high school. I worked there before it imploded. And when I graduated, right before I graduated from high school, I was on the yearbook staff in my high school. I was still trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with my life. And one of my teachers who was on the yearbook staff suggested journalism, and it clicked. I like reading the news. I used to watch Meet the Press before church. I used to read Jet and Ebony as a child. And so I went to Jackson State University in Mississippi and studied journalism. My senior year in college, I ended up working for the Clarion Ledger, writing obits. Not the most glamorous job in the world, but for me, like working from Blockbuster to a major newspaper was like amazing. And when I graduated from Jackson State, I'm moving to the Bay Area, working at the Oakland Tribune. I was mostly a cop reporter working at the Oakland Tribune. And that was where I would say the wheel started to click as far as like, what do I really want to do? In Oakland, I was, as I said, I was a cop reporter, and I would mostly write about children getting shot. Like, I know, interview someone's mom right after their child died. And I'm like, I'm Deshauna with Oakland Tribune, and I had to write a story about it. And from there, I realized that I didn't want to be that type of journalist or storyteller where I was writing about death and suffering, especially for my community. And that's when I went this long journey to figure out what does that look like? What does impactful storytelling look like? After leaving the Oakland Tribune, I did PR, which I hated. Then I worked for a small newspaper in Tennessee. Then I moved to the DC area, working for a trade association as a communications manager. I worked there for a number of years. While working there, my first business was an online magazine. And I started an online magazine. I hosted a radio show here in DC where I live now. And I also hosted a radio show. It's called Empower Magazine. Empower Hours, the radio show. And the event was the Power Players Awards. When I was knee deep in my online magazine, I did a documentary called Moments Erupted. And while I was doing a documentary, I really became more interested in the film industry. And I remember one day flipping through a bunch of cable channels many years ago while I was working on my online magazine. And I was like, man, all I see is women fighting on reality television. It's not February, so I don't see any Black history. Where are these independent films that I read about, like on Shadow Act? Like, how can I see those films? And I got a subscription to the service everyone has that actually killed Blockbuster. And I still didn't see what I was looking for. And so, and someone else mentioned this, like any person who sees a need, you like, well, maybe I can do it. And so that's kind of where I went on this journey to figure out, like, what if I start a streaming service? Like, what if I create a platform that celebrates Black stories? We're not traumatizing people with our stories. We educate through Black history, and we solve implicit bias through a platform. And it's interesting because when I started the company, I was still working on Empower, and I was really afraid to kind of give it up because as a journalist, I thought that would be my life's mission. And I think for a lot of people, when you pivot, you wonder, will this make sense? Is this something I'm supposed to be doing? And so I made the jump to focus on Quilly TV versus Empower. And I closed that business and focused full-time on Quilly TV. And that's sort of, how I got started with my company.
I love it. I learned about Emmett Till through Jet Magazine as well when I was a little kid. So I get it. Okay, how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. They can reach us on all the major social media platforms, which is at kweli.tv. If you want to subscribe, we're only $5.99 a month with no ads, $2.99 with ads. And you can go to our website, which is kweli.tv.
Awesome. Okay, so listen, you all, we said you would get a treat, and you got a treat, right? And so here's what I need for you all to do if you're out there watching. Here's what I need you all to do. So a few things. One, support them, right? They laid out how they can how you can get in contact with them. So reach out to them, help them with introductions to customers, capital, press, or something like that, or perhaps someone else in your network can do that. So think about how you can either do it yourself or get others to do so. You can also find out more about them at Goodie Nation's website, goodienation.org. So go to the Intention Good page and do that. If you can do that in terms of like helping them out for, let's say, 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour a month over 6 months, you go from action to habit to culture to behavior. And that's how we can close the relationship gap. So once again, I'm Joey Womack, founder, CEO of Goodie Nation, with another awesome episode of Prequel Origin Stories and Inflection Points. Peace out, y'all.